Lessons from History. Sir Eyre Crowe's 1907 prediction of Germany and the rise of China. A section from Mehmet Emin Hazret's book, Kissinger and China, 50 Years of Love and Betrayal, The Anatomy of Kissinger's Half-Century Relationship with China. Sir Eyre Crowe's 1907 memorandum analyzed Germany's economic, technological, and military rise and attempted to predict its impact on Britain's national security and world order. The lessons of Crowe's analysis can be applied to similar strategic considerations today in the face of China's rise. Crowe's warnings provide a guide to understanding the dynamics of the rise of global powers and their impact on the international order. Who is Sir Eyre Crowe? His diplomatic career. Sir Eyre Crowe, 1864 to 1925, one of Britain's leading diplomats, had a profound impact on the balance of power in Europe. Understanding of German politics. Crowe's most important contribution was his political analysis of international. His upbringing in a family of German descent helped him gain a deeper relations with a realist approach based on the balance of power theory. The 1907 Memorandum and its significance. The Crowe Memorandum is a comprehensive analysis of the threats posed to Britain by Germany's economic and military growth. The memorandum drew attention to Germany's potential to establish a global hegemony through technological modernization, commercial expansion, and naval power building. This document was an important guide for Britain in developing diplomatic and military strategies against Germany. Key points in Crowe's memorandum. 1. Germany's rise and strategic goals. Germany's economic and military growth has been identified as a threat to the balance of power in Europe. Crowe stated that Germany is not only limited to economic interests, but also aims to become a worldwide political and military power. 2. Germany's intentions. Crowe interpreted Germany's military modernization and commercial expansion as an attempt to change the international order. Germany's naval power building and global trade network expansion efforts were in direct conflict with Britain's interests. 3. Britain's response. Crowe suggested that Britain pursue balance of power diplomacy in its relations with Germany. He argued that Britain should balance Germany by developing alliances with France and Russia against Germany's aggressive policies. Crowe's foresight and the rise of China. Today, Crowe's analysis of Germany parallels assessments of China's rapidly growing economic, technological, and military power. Similarities between China and Germany. 1. Economic empowerment. While Germany became an economic superpower with the Industrial Revolution at the turn of the 20th century, China has made a similar rise to become the world's second-largest economy in the 21st century. With projects such as the Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), China is expanding its influence in global trade and infrastructure. 2. Military modernization. Germany's naval power building is similar to China's militarization efforts in the South China Sea. China is becoming a global military threat by increasing its nuclear capacity and increasing pressure on Taiwan and other countries in the region. 3. Reshaping the international order. Germany's goal was to shift the balance of power in Europe in its favor. Similarly, China aims to change the existing international order to create a global system under its leadership. Crowe's lessons and application for today. 1. Combining intentions and capabilities. Crowe emphasized the importance of assessing a country's intentions as well as whether it has the capabilities to realize those intentions. China's economic power and technological capacity suggest that it has the infrastructure to realize its intentions. 2. Balance of power strategy. The policy of alliance and deterrence that Crowe proposed for Germany can be implemented today with the cooperation of the United States, Japan, India, and European countries against China. 3. Digital and technological power. In Crowe's time, the advantages Germany gained through the Industrial Revolution can be compared to China's superiority in artificial intelligence, 5G, technology, and cybersecurity. China's rise in these areas poses new threats to the global balance of power. 4. Human rights and global norms. In analyzing Germany's authoritarian regime, Crowe questioned its implications for international stability. China's Uyghur genocide, repression in Hong Kong, and Taiwan policy similarly threaten global norms. Conclusion: lessons for China from Crowe's predictions. Sir Eyre Crowe's 1907 Memorandum on Germany is a historical guide to analyzing the threats that come with the rise of global powers. Crowe's observations on Germany's economic and military rise have direct implications for China today. Balance of power strategy is a tool that the United States and its allies must employ to limit China's influence. Crowe's analysis demonstrates the importance of a balanced approach between diplomacy, alliances, and deterrence. To maintain global stability, Crowe's assessment of Germany provides a strategic framework that can be applied to counter China's current rise. Background to the memorandum: balance of power and competition in Europe. To understand the background of Sir Eyre Crowe's 1907 memorandum, it is necessary to examine the complex geopolitical dynamics of late 19th and early 20th century Europe. During this period, the rivalry between the great powers and the rapid rise of Germany radically altered the balance of power in Europe. Competition and balance of power in Europe. 1. Germany's rapid rise. Impact of the Industrial Revolution. Germany industrialized rapidly in the late 19th century and became one of Europe's economic engines. Technological breakthroughs in the coal, steel, and chemical industries made the country a major player in global trade. Military strengthening. Following its unification under the leadership of Prussia, 1871, Germany began to build a strong army and navy. This situation was perceived as a threat, challenging Britain's supremacy at sea. 2. Britain's reaction. Maritime supremacy and global interests. Throughout the 19th century, Britain had established a global hegemony through its naval supremacy, Pax Britannica. Germany's efforts to increase its naval power were seen as a direct challenge to this superiority. Germany's colonial policies. Germany rivaled Britain's global interests by trying to acquire colonies in Africa and Asia. 3. Franco-German rivalry. The Alsace-Lorraine question. After the Battle of Sedan in 1871, Germany captured the Alsace-Lorraine region from France. This led to a long-lasting enmity between France and Germany. Diplomatic alliances. France tried to form an alliance with Russia and Britain against Germany. In this context, the Crowe Memorandum discusses what kind of attitude Britain should take towards Germany. Crowe Memorandum and Britain's policy towards Germany. 1. Main message of the memorandum. Germany's threat. Crowe argued that Germany was seeking to transform the international system in its favor by increasing its economic and military power. Despite any signs that Germany's intentions were peaceful, the potential for the abuse of this power required Britain to be vigilant. Balance of power strategy. Crowe developed a balance of power strategy by suggesting that Britain should cooperate with other great powers such as France and Russia against Germany. 2. Britain's strategic options. Strengthening the Navy. Britain invested heavily in its navy to maintain its superiority over Germany's naval power. Diplomatic alliances. Crowe argued for closer ties with France and Russia to limit Germany's global influence. Similarities to today's China-US rivalry. Crowe's 1907 memorandum is also a valuable guide to understanding the strategic challenges facing the United States today in the context of China's rise. 1. Germany-China parallels. Economic power. The economic superiority that Germany gained with the Industrial Revolution is now exhibiting a similar dynamic to China's technological and economic growth. Military modernization. Germany's naval build-up strategy can be likened to China's military activities and maritime supremacy efforts in the South China Sea today. 2. UK-US parallels. Global leadership. Britain's efforts to maintain maritime supremacy at the turn of the 20th century parallels today's US efforts to maintain global leadership. Balance of power strategy. Crowe's proposed strategy of alliance with France and Russia is in line with the current US policy of strengthening cooperation with Japan, South Korea, India, and NATO allies. Lessons from the past. The 1907 Crowe Memorandum provides a historical precedent for understanding the effects of the rapid rise of a great power on the international system. The similarities between Germany's economic and military rise and China's rise today highlight the importance of balance of power strategies. Crowe's analysis shows how strong alliances, diplomatic flexibility, and deterrence policies can be an effective tool in great power competition. Today, the United States and its allies must take these historical lessons into account and develop pragmatic, long-term strategies to counter China's rise. Key contents of the Crowe Memorandum. The Crowe Memorandum is historically significant as a document that analyzed Britain's strategic options and threats to its national security in the face of Germany's rise. Crowe's approach proposed a strategy based on the balance of power, emphasizing the inevitable effects of Germany's power rather than its intentions. 1. Germany's intentions and threat to Britain. Threat perception independent of intentions. Crowe argued that regardless of whether Germany pursued a direct aggressive policy against Britain, its growing power and imperial ambitions threatened Britain's global interests. Germany's economic growth, military modernization, and naval power building were seen as in conflict with Britain's global leadership. Germany's quest for hegemony. Crowe expressed concern that Germany's aim might be to establish worldwide hegemony. These hegemonic ambitions could lead to an inevitable conflict with Britain. The naval power race. Germany's efforts to increase its naval power were seen as a direct challenge to Britain's supremacy at sea. 2. Cooperation with France. Balance policy. Strengthening the Entente Cordiale, sincere alliance. Crowe argued that the Entente Cordiale signed between Britain and France in 1904 should be maintained and expanded. cooperation with France was seen as a critical step to balance Germany's power in Europe. Geopolitical imperative. Stating that Britain could not act alone against Germany, Crowe emphasized the importance of cooperation with other great powers in Europe, especially France and Russia. Partnerships based on balance of power. Crowe believed that the only way to balance Germany's growing power was to develop diplomatic alliances. 3. Realpolitik approach. Balance of power and geopolitical reality. Focusing on power rather than intentions. Crowe argued that even if Germany had no aggressive intentions towards Britain, its growing power and quest for hegemony posed a threat. Balance of power, not a clash of character. Crowe characterized the tension in Anglo-German relations not as a clash of characters, but as a necessity, based on the balance of power. Germany's economic and military rise. Germany's economic growth, industrial power, and modernizing military were seen as a systematic challenge to Britain's global interests. In particular, the building of naval power was perceived as a direct threat to Britain's control over global trade routes. 4. Britain's strategy, diplomacy and deterrence. Military deterrence and readiness. Crowe stated that Britain should not only engage in diplomatic but also military deterrence policies against Germany. Naval power. Britain had to continue to strengthen its own navy in response to Germany's naval power building. Diplomatic options. Crowe suggested that Britain should deepen its diplomatic ties with France and Russia to prevent Germany from becoming the dominant power in Europe. Multilateral approach. He argued that Germany's dominance in Europe could be prevented not only by a single state but also by the cooperation of the Allied powers. 5. Implications for today. China and Crowe's lessons. Crowe's analysis of Germany offers similar strategic lessons when considered in the context of China's economic and military rise today. Germany-China parallels. Economic power. Germany's dominance in the Industrial Revolution is analogous to China's leadership in global trade and technology. Military modernization. Germany's naval power race is similar to China's militarization efforts in the South China Sea. UK-US parallels. Global leadership. Britain's efforts to maintain its maritime supremacy are similar to the US attempts to maintain its global leadership in the 21st century. Diplomatic alliances. Crowe's proposal for cooperation with France and Russia is in line with the current US strategy of strengthening partnerships with Japan, South Korea, India, and NATO allies. Conclusion. Historical significance of Crowe's analysis. The Crowe Memorandum is a document that explains in a historical context the importance of balance of power strategies in the face of the rise of great powers. By analyzing the potential for the use of force regardless of Germany's intentions, Crowe offers lessons that are relevant for today's geopolitics. The US and its allies focus on strategic alliances and deterrence policies, especially in the face of China's rise, represents an updated version of Crowe's vision. Implications of the 1907 Memorandum. The Crowe Memorandum had a major impact on Britain's foreign policy and the balance of power in Europe. The memorandum laid out the measures that Britain should take in the face of Germany's rising power with a harsh realism and led the British government to develop a more cautious and strategic policy towards Germany. 1. Influences on Britain's policy towards Germany. Adoption of a realist approach. The Crowe Memorandum emphasized that Germany's growing power regardless of its intentions, was a threat and enabled Britain to adopt a realist approach to its foreign policy. Germany's efforts to strengthen its naval forces have been clearly demonstrated to be a direct challenge to Britain's global naval supremacy. Investments in naval forces. The memorandum paved the way for Britain to devote more resources to modernizing its navy and competing with Germany's naval power. Dreadnought-class battleships. In response to Germany's naval power competition, Britain started to build modern warships and aimed to maintain its superiority at sea. 2. Strengthening of the Triple Entente. Cooperation with France and Russia. Crowe's emphasis on the importance of alliances against the growing power of Germany contributed to Britain's closer diplomatic relations with France and Russia. The Entente Cordiale signed with France in 1904 and the Anglo-Russian Treaty with Russia in 1907 were critical steps in the formation of the Triple Entente. Balancing policy against Germany. Crowe argued that the support of France and Russia was vital to balance Germany's dominant power in Europe. This policy was an important factor in determining Britain's side at the outbreak of World War I. 3. The role of the memorandum in the process leading to World War I. Germany's quest for hegemony. Germany's efforts to increase industrial and military power led to a power struggle in Europe, as Crowe predicted. The Alsace-Lorraine question. Germany's hostility towards France and its enlargement policies have escalated diplomatic tensions in Europe. Britain's military preparations. In line with Crowe's recommendations, Britain accelerated its preparations not only diplomatically but also militarily. This allowed Britain to mobilize rapidly during World War I. 4. Historical accuracy of Crowe's predictions. Hitler's Germany and the Second World War. Crowe's analysis of Germany's quest for power provides an important framework for understanding the background not only to World War I but also to World War II. The rise of Nazism. The aggressive policies of Hitler's Germany proved once again that Crowe's warnings about Germany's quest for hegemony were correct. The success of realism. Crowe's realist approach was effective in protecting Britain's long-term interests by focusing not only on Germany's military power but also on its economic capacity and global intentions. Crowe's lessons in the context of China's rise. The 1907 memorandum offers important historical parallels and strategic lessons when compared to the global rise of China today. 1. Parallels between Germany and China. Economic power. Germany's role in the Industrial Revolution is similar to China's leadership in global trade and technology today. Military modernization. Germany's race for naval power is similar to China's strategy of focusing on armaments in a hurry, with huge budgets allocated to the construction of aircraft carriers and warships. 2. Parallels between the UK and the US. Global leadership. Britain's naval supremacy in the early 20th century overlaps with the US's global military and economic leadership today. Diplomatic alliances. Crowe's proposed model of cooperation with France and Russia is similar to the US policy of alliances with Japan, South Korea, India and NATO allies today. 3. Lessons from the past. Crowe's strategy for Germany is a guide to how the United States and its allies should focus on balance of power and deterrence in the face of China's rise. The Crowe Memorandum is a landmark document that shaped Britain's foreign policy. In the early 20th century, and grounded balance of power strategies in the face of Germany's rise. Germany's quest for hegemony was the precursor to a devastating war in Europe. Crowe's analysis also contains lessons for the rise of China in the 21st century. History has shown how the unchecked rise of a powerful country can affect not only a region but the entire world. In this context, Crowe's insights offer a powerful perspective for both understanding history and developing responses to today's geopolitical challenges. China and Germany. Similarities in the context of power rise. China's rise in the 21st century has important similarities with Germany's quest for power in the early 20th century. Al Crowe's analysis of Germany provides a valuable perspective for understanding China's regional and global policies. 1. Strategic behavior and distrust. China's signals of hegemony. Pressure on Taiwan. China has been escalating its threatening rhetoric against Taiwan's independence attempts and backing these threats with military exercises. This threatens regional peace and international balance. Militarization in the South China Sea. China aims to control the sea trade routes in the region by turning artificial islands in the South China Sea into military bases. This poses serious risks of conflict with neighboring countries and the United States. Parallels with Germany. Al Crowe has argued that Germany's investment in its naval power is a challenge to Britain's naval supremacy. Similarly, China's naval buildup is a direct challenge to U.S. military supremacy in the Pacific region. Just as Germany is seen as a source of insecurity in Europe, China plays a similar role in the Asia-Pacific region. 2. Desire for hegemony. China's claim to hegemony. The Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Through this initiative, China is expanding its economic influence by offering infrastructure projects and financing mechanisms linking Asia, Africa, and Europe. However, these projects have been criticized for creating debt traps and undermining countries' sovereignty. Questioning international rules. China questions the current US-led international order and seeks to create an alternative order centered in Asia. This is in line with Germany's desire to change the British-centered order in the early 20th century. Parallels with Germany. Germany's efforts to increase its naval and industrial power threaten the balance of power in Europe. Similarly, China's economic power and military modernization risk shifting the international balance of power in favor of Asia. Germany's quest for leadership in Europe was one of the factors that triggered the First World War. China's claims to global leadership pose similar risks in crisis points such as Taiwan and the South China Sea. 3. Military and economic empowerment. China's investment in military power. Navy expansion. China is building a navy capable of challenging U.S. naval power in the Indo-Pacific region. Equipped with aircraft carriers, modern submarines, and AI-enabled systems, the Chinese Navy has the potential to change regional and global balances. Defense spending. China has become the second-largest military spender in the world, increasing its defense budget every year. Use of economic power. Supply chains. China plays a strategic role in global supply chains, exerting economic pressure on Western countries. Technology and innovation. Investments in areas such as artificial intelligence, 5G technologies, and quantum computing have placed China at the forefront of technological competition. This threatens the technological superiority of the West. Parallels with Germany. Germany's economic and technological power gained through the Industrial Revolution before the First World War intensified its rivalry with other countries in Europe. Germany's armament programs upset the balance of power in Europe, increasing the risk of war. China's military modernization is creating a similar security dilemma. Conclusion: the strategic importance of historical similarities. What Germany and China have in common. The rise of Germany in the early 20th century and the rise of China in the 21st century have the potential to upset the balance of power in the international system. Both countries have increased their economic and military power and claimed regional and global leadership. History shows how rapidly rising powers in the international system can have devastating consequences if left unchecked. In the face of China's rise, the lessons of Eyre Crowe's analysis of Germany provide a guide for addressing the biggest geopolitical challenges of the 21st century. Differences. China and Germany compared. In addition to the similarities between the rise of China and Germany, there are distinct differences between the two powers. These differences are the main factors shaping both countries' influence in the international system and their relations with other countries. 1. Economic interdependence and global integration. Germany. Regional economic growth. Industrial strength. With the Industrial Revolution, Germany developed a model of economic growth based on its production and trade network within Europe. Regional dependence. Germany's economic growth was based on exports, especially to European countries. Its global economic influence was limited. China, engine of the global economy. Global supply chains. China has become the most critical part of global supply chains in the 21st century, positioning itself as the factory of the world. Economic interdependence. The world economy is heavily influenced by trade relations with China. This creates a counterweight that could limit China's aggressive policies, as the cost of economic isolation would be too high. 2. Technological superiority and power transformation. Germany. Traditional industrial powerhouse. Industrialized economy. Germany had an economic growth model based on traditional industry, such as steel, coal, and machinery production. Limited focus on technology. Germany's technological advances were mostly limited to military production and industrial efficiency. China, aiming for technological leadership. Artificial intelligence and 5G. China is aiming for leadership in areas such as artificial intelligence, 5G, quantum computing, and cybersecurity. This makes China's role in the international system different from that of Germany. Technological competition. China is challenging the West through technology transfer, incentives for domestic production, and state-sponsored R&D winking and laughing investments. This allows it to increase both its economic and military power. 3. Cultural and historical differences. Germany, militarist and quick moves. Historical militarism. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Germany sought to gain power through rapid and aggressive military strategies. This was one of the factors that led to the First and Second World Wars. Risk-oriented strategy. Germany's strategic approach focused on quick military gains. Short-term goals were prioritized over long-term strategies. China, patience and long-term strategy. Confucian strategy. China's cultural and historical approach is based on patience and long-term goals. This approach is shaped by Confucian values and strategic depth. Use of soft power. China uses economic and diplomatic soft power as a primary tool through projects such as the Belt and Road Initiative. This is markedly different from Germany's hard power-oriented strategies. Geopolitical implications of differences. 1. Global connectedness. China's deep integration into the global economy differs from Germany's more regionally oriented economic model, and this could be a limiting factor for China's aggressive policies. 2. Technological strength. China's rapid progress in high technology offers a different dimension to Germany's traditional industrial strength. This positions China not only as an economic power but also as a technology leader. 3. Strategic approaches. China's long-term, patient strategies differ from Germany's more risk-oriented and short-term approaches. This could allow China to more steadily increase its global influence. Historical differences have shaped the rise of China and Germany as global powers, but these differences offer critical lessons for understanding their role in the international system and their relations with other countries. Unlike Germany, China is influencing the international system in the 21st century with a more patient and technology-oriented strategy. Potential threats and risks. 1. Regional and global security. A. Taiwan crisis. Possible conflict. A Chinese attack on Taiwan has the potential to escalate into a global conflict, not just a regional crisis. The defense commitments of the US, Japan and other regional allies to Taiwan increase the risk of a large-scale war. In such a scenario, closure of trade routes. The Taiwan Strait is an important transit point for global trade. A conflict here could seriously damage the world economy. B. South China Sea. Sovereignty claims. China's expansionist policies in the South China Sea pose threats to energy resources and trade routes in the region. Military escalation. China's construction of artificial islands and military infrastructure in the region could increase tensions with other countries and destabilize the region. 2. Human rights violations. A. Uyghur genocide. Systematic repression. The mass detention camps, forced labor, forced sterilization and cultural genocide of Uyghurs in East Turkestan is considered one of the worst crimes against humanity in modern history. Lack of international response. China's economic power makes it difficult for many countries to take a direct stand against these abuses. B. Exporting autocracy. Spread of the model. China's authoritarian model of governance risks becoming a global norm through digital surveillance technologies and social credit systems, challenging democracy. This model weakens global democratic standards and poses a serious threat to human rights and freedoms. 3. Economic dependency and sanctions. A. Global economic impact. The West's dilemma. China plays a critical role in global supply chains and manufacturing, as Western countries seek to limit China's influence through sanctions or trade independence efforts. They risk economic costs and trade losses. China's retaliatory capacity. China can influence global trade and investment through economic retaliation. In particular, its control of rare earth elements and technology supply chains is a strategic disadvantage for the West. B. Risks of sanctions. Supply chain disruptions, as the US and Europe seek to partially sever economic ties with China. This could create large gaps in supply chains. A market loss. China is one of the largest consumer markets for many Western companies. Sanctions may limit the growth prospects of these companies. 4. Environmental impacts. A. Carbon emissions. The cost of industrialization. As the world's largest carbon emitter, China is a major contributor to global climate change. Renewable energy efforts. While China is a leader in renewable energy production, the use of fossil fuels such as coal is still high. B. Environmental destruction. Rapid urbanization. China's rapid urbanization and industrial growth has led to air pollution, depletion of water resources, and degradation of ecosystems. Impact on global climate policies. China's environmental policies have a decisive role in the success of international initiatives such as the Paris Climate Agreement. However, China's domestic dynamics and economic priorities complicate its commitment to such initiatives. A complex and multidimensional threat. China's global rise poses a series of threats and risks, not only at the regional but also at the global level. Regional security, human rights, economic interdependence, and environmental impacts are key elements shaping China's role in the world order. In the face of these threats, the international community must develop an effective balancing policy through diplomacy, military deterrence, and economic strategies. Modern reflection of historical warning. The lessons that can be drawn from Sir Eyre Crowe's analysis of Germany offer a strategic guide to China's rapid rise in the 21st century. Crowe's warnings about Germany's rise to power in 1907 can be seen in the context of China's rise as a modern version of a similar threat. Critical lessons. 1. The cost of deferred interventions. The German example has shown that the unchecked growth of great powers can lead to global chaos. Delayed measures against China could have similar consequences. 2. The importance of global coordination. The lackluster efforts to contain Germany's rise under the need for international solidarity on China. 3. Anti-hegemonic policies. Balancing any great power that seeks hegemony is not only a national but also a global responsibility. Vision for the future. China's rise threatens the foundations of the international system, but this threat can be managed in a careful and coordinated manner. History has proven that strategic responses to the rise of great powers are critical. The decisions taken in this process will determine not only US-China relations, but also the peace and stability of the future global order. The international community has a historical responsibility to take strategic steps to manage China's global ambitions and protect the world from another major conflict.